Lena Morris vanished the day after Grant whispered one word. Marjorie. No one knew what it meant. No one knew why it shattered their seemingly perfect marriage. But Detective Rhea Collins suspected the truth was buried in a past Lena had spent 12 years hiding from, a past that involved fake identities, a cold trail of missing women, and a man who made a habit of finding those who wanted to be lost. Now Lena was gone without a trace. Again. And Grant Morris? He was already on the hunt. Something terrible had happened once. Something Lena swore would never happen again. But this time, she wasn't running. She was waiting. Lena Morris lived a life most people envied. Her days were quiet and predictable, shaped by routine and simplicity. She worked as a librarian at the local high school, arriving every morning at precisely 7:40 with a thermos of black coffee and a worn leather tote filled with neatly organized lesson plans. Students liked her, though they found her a bit distant, always polite, never warm. Her co-workers often described her as peaceful, reserved, someone who seemed content in the background. But it wasn't just the school that described her that way. Lena had become an expert at being forgettable, and that's exactly how she wanted it. Grant Morris, her husband, was the opposite in nearly every way. Tall, confident, and magnetic, he lit up every room he entered. As a local real estate agent, he was well known around town. He threw community barbecues, attended town council meetings, and had a knack for remembering people's names and birthdays. When Grant spoke, people listened. When he smiled, people felt seen. To the outside world, Lena and Grant were the perfect balance. Quiet intellect, married to confident charisma. But Lena had a secret. Something old, something buried so deep inside her that even she had stopped acknowledging it. And for nearly 8 years, that secret stayed hidden beneath calm smiles and the scent of old books. No one, not even Grant, suspected that she was living her life with one foot always ready to flee. Then came the night, everything cracked. It was a Sunday. Rain tapped gently against the windows, and the fireplace flickered in their living room as the couple shared a modest dinner. Nothing seemed out of place. Grant had made roasted chicken with rosemary, and Lena was halfway through a second glass of wine. They talked about the usual things: work, neighborhood gossip, an upcoming property listing. Then, as casually as someone might mention the weather, Grant said the word. Just one word. A name. Marjorie. He didn't look at her when he said it. He just kept cutting his chicken, like he hadn't noticed the shift in the air. But Lena had frozen. Her fork slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the plate. In a split second her face went pale, eyes wide with something between horror and realization. Grant looked up, puzzled, as though waiting for her to laugh at some shared joke. But Lena didn't laugh. She stood up, walked to the sink, and stood there for a long time. No one ever heard what else was said in that house that night. If anything was said at all, what is known is this: Lena didn't sleep in their bed. She didn't return to work the next morning. Instead, at 9:12 a.m., she walked into a lawyer's office and requested to file for divorce. Her face was expressionless. Her voice calm. She said it was urgent. When asked why, she replied with a single sentence. He said a word he should never have known. That was it. No fights, no accusations, no second chances. The paperwork was filed. She signed it without hesitation. Then she disappeared. For days, no one could find her. Grant told friends she had gone to stay with family, but there were no records of travel, no phone calls, no emails. Her social media went silent. Her phone disconnected. A neighbor reported seeing her drive away that night with nothing but a duffel bag and her cat in the passenger seat. She never came back. People whispered. Had she been cheating? Had she found something out? Was she ill? The idea that Grant had said something that shattered their marriage so suddenly, that haunted people. What word could possibly destroy 8 years of quiet, peaceful marriage? The answer, as it turned out, wasn't in what was said. It was in who he thought she still was. The name lingered like smoke. Marjorie. It shouldn't have meant anything. It was just a word, a name uttered offhandedly over dinner. But for Lena Morris, it detonated everything she had spent the last 12 years carefully building. To anyone else, it might have been dismissed as a slip of the tongue or a misremembered anecdote. But not to her. Not when that name belonged to a life she had buried so completely that even her closest friends knew nothing about it. After she filed for divorce, Lena didn't speak to anyone. Not the lawyer who gently tried to probe for a reason. Not the neighbor who asked if she was okay. Not even the police when they followed up weeks later. Her statement remained maddeningly vague. He said it, and I knew everything was a lie. She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to, not for herself. For Lena, that one word had reopened a wound she thought had scarred over, revealing not just pain but danger. Grant, for his part, seemed as stunned as anyone. He told people that Lena was having a breakdown. The stress of their quiet life had caught up with her. He said she was paranoid, overly sensitive. When reporters later asked about the word, he just smiled and said, "I honestly don't remember what I said that upset her." But his eyes, according to one journalist, twitched just slightly when asked about the name Marjorie. Something was. Within days, whispers turned to full-blown rumors. Lena's sudden flight and refusal to explain herself didn't help. Some speculated she'd found something on his computer. Others believed she was running from something, or perhaps to someone. There were even absurd theories, secret affairs, double lives, pregnancy, threats. But nobody guessed the truth, not yet. All they had was that name, Marjorie, and a woman who had vanished almost as quickly as she had entered their lives. What made the situation even stranger was how little Lena took with her. No financial withdrawals, no credit card transactions. Her car was later found parked neatly on the side of a quiet county road. Doors locked, keys still in the ignition. Her purse was on the passenger seat, zipped and untouched. Her wedding ring had been placed carefully on the center console, as if she had staged her own disappearance with surgical precision. But there were no signs of violence, no blood, no struggle, just emptiness. It was as if she had evaporated into the fog. Grant continued to maintain his innocence, but his story had gaps. He couldn't recall the context of the conversation in which the name Marjorie came up. He offered changing versions to different people. Sometimes it was a real estate client, other times a childhood friend, but the inconsistencies didn't sit well with Detective Rhea Collins, who had begun to follow the case unofficially. Something about it scratched at her instincts, reminding her of another case, a cold one, filed away and forgotten by most. A case involving a woman named Marjorie Pike, who had vanished 12 years earlier. The moment that connection entered the investigation, the case took a darker turn. Collins began piecing together timelines, comparing photos, scrutinizing birth records. Things didn't match up. Lena Morris's early life before she moved to town was a blank slate. There were no school transcripts, no old addresses, no family visits. It was like she had been born the day she arrived. And then there was that word. That one word. It wasn't just a slip, it was a crack in the mask Grant had worn for years. A crack Lena recognized the second she heard it. She had lived in fear of that name, trained herself to avoid it, denied its existence. And now, it had returned, spoken by the one person she had trusted most. He said Marjorie, and just like that, Lena knew. He remembered everything. Or worse, he had never forgotten. 3 days after Lena Morris filed for divorce, the town woke up to news that no one had expected. She was missing. What began as whispers among coworkers quickly spiraled into a full-blown police investigation when Lena failed to show up at her attorney's office for a scheduled meeting. Her car had been found that morning by a jogger, neatly parked at the edge of the Bellevue River Trail, a quiet and remote area on the outskirts of town. The keys were still in the ignition. The driver's side door was unlocked. Inside, everything was undisturbed. Her purse was on the passenger seat, zipped, untouched. Her phone lay face down on the center console, battery drained. Her wedding ring was placed carefully beside it, a deliberate act that said more than words ever could. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no footprints leading into the woods. No indication of where she had gone. It was as if she had stepped out of the car and simply vanished. Detective Rhea Collins arrived on the scene before the press got wind of it. She examined the vehicle personally, noting the eerie neatness of it all. It didn't feel like a panic. It didn't feel like someone trying to flee in a hurry. If anything, it felt methodical, controlled. That detail, more than anything, sent a chill down her spine. Grant Morris seemed genuinely shocked when the police showed up at his doorstep. At least, that was the performance he gave. He said he hadn't heard from Lena since she filed for divorce, claimed she needed space, and that he was respecting her decision. But his eyes kept shifting, and when asked if he'd noticed anything strange before she left, he paused a second too long. He didn't mention the word. Not to the officers, not to the reporters, not even in the private interviews. The word Marjorie was wiped clean from his story. But Collins already knew about it. Lena had told her lawyer, and that was the lead she followed. What troubled Collins most wasn't just Lena's sudden disappearance, it was how prepared she seemed to be for it. There were signs, subtle ones, that she had expected to run. A small duffel bag missing from their bedroom closet. A few essential documents gone from the file cabinet. No plane tickets, no bus receipts, no hotel check-ins. She had vanished with precision, almost like she had done it before. The case began to consume the small town. News vans parked outside the Morris residence. Social media lit up with wild theories. Friends of Lena came forward with vague memories. She was kind, yes, but private. A few admitted she had once told them she'd never fully trusted anyone, that she didn't believe in safety, only silence. Those comments, once brushed off as quirks, now seemed like warnings. Grant remained the center of attention. His charm began to fade under scrutiny. Reporters noticed how rehearsed his segments sounded. His friend and business partner, Toby Fields, told a journalist off the record that Grant had always had a dark side, something he hid well, but that slipped out when he drank or got angry. Toby had seen flashes of it, but never dared ask questions. Meanwhile, Collins kept digging. She began reviewing old case files, curious if any other women had gone missing under similar circumstances. Her instincts told her Lena's story didn't begin with a divorce. It began long before that, and when she stumbled on a forgotten case from over a decade ago, another woman gone without a trace, bearing an uncanny resemblance to Lena, her suspicions solidified into something colder. This wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. And Lena hadn't simply run. Whatever, or whoever, she was running from, had found her again. And this time, she might not escape. Detective Rhea Collins sat alone in the dim records room of the Bellevue Police Department, sifting through dusty boxes labeled with faded ink. Most officers dismissed cold cases as hopeless puzzles. But Collins wasn't like most officers. Something about Lena Morris's disappearance refused to let go of her. The neatness of the car, the missing bag, the eerie silence, and of course, the word, Marjorie. That name had lodged itself in Collins's mind like a splinter she couldn't remove. She began searching through missing persons cases filed over the last 15 years, focusing on those involving women who disappeared suddenly, without a trace, and bore any resemblance to Lena. Most were dead ends. But then she found a thin manila folder marked M. Pike. Inside were just a few pages, a photo, a brief statement, and an unresolved status stamped in red. Marjorie Pike, 26 years old, no children, no family in the area. Disappeared from her apartment one summer night. No forced entry, no known enemies, no significant romantic partner listed, at least, not officially. But the moment Collins saw the photo, her breath caught. The resemblance was undeniable. Same deep-set eyes, same angular jaw, same quiet stare that revealed nothing and invited even less. Collins checked the date. August, exactly 12 years ago. Marjorie would be 38 now. The same age Lena claimed to be. A search for Marjorie's birth certificate revealed something strange. It had been requested once in the last 10 years. The request had come from a neighboring town, and the name used was Lena Whitmore, the name Lena Morris used before she got married. That was it. The connection was real. Lena and Marjorie weren't lookalikes. They were the same person. But that discovery only raised more questions. Why had Marjorie Pike disappeared in 2013? What had happened to her in the years before she became Lena? And most importantly, why had she come back? Collins dug deeper, pulling the original missing persons report filed by a landlord. It mentioned that Marjorie left behind most of her belongings, except for her laptop and a box of personal documents. Oddly, the apartment had been wiped clean. No fingerprints, no clothing, no hair, almost like she'd never lived there at all. There were no leads at the time. The file was closed within 6 months due to lack of evidence, but something else caught Collins's eye. A name scribbled in the margins of an interview transcript. Boyfriend, Grant M., unofficial, not confirmed. Grant Morris. 12 years ago, Grant had lived in the same city where Marjorie vanished. There were no police interviews with him. No formal connection ever made. But the timing, the location, and now Lena's reaction to that name, it all aligned too perfectly to ignore. Collins searched property records from that period and found that Grant had owned a small condo just 10 blocks from Marjorie's last known address. The records showed he sold the property just a month after Marjorie disappeared. No one had ever connected the two cases, until now. The pieces were starting to form a picture, but it was still incomplete. Collins couldn't shake the feeling that Lena or Marjorie had vanished before, once by choice and once out of necessity. She had run from Grant before. Somehow, against all odds, he had found her again, lured her back, married her under her new identity. And then, in a moment of carelessness, he had said the name, the old name, her real name. A single word had torn the mask off his face. And this time, she didn't just run. She disappeared so completely, it was as if she had practiced the escape her whole life. But Collins had a new lead, and for the first time, the mystery began to unravel. The hunter had become the hunted, and the woman known as Lena Morris was not done hiding. It had been 2 weeks since Lena's disappearance, and Detective Rhea Collins hadn't slept through a single night. Each lead she uncovered pulled her deeper into a past no one had dared to investigate. One that had remained hidden under a new name, a new life, and a carefully crafted marriage. But it was more than a mystery now. Collins was beginning to feel the sharp edges of something colder, something more dangerous. She no longer believed Lena had simply run. She began to fear that Lena had been hunted. Collins revisited the quiet suburban home Lena had shared with Grant. The house felt wrong now. Too tidy, too still. She walked through the living room again, her eyes scanning the mantel where a single framed photo of the couple still sat. Lena's smile in the picture seemed strained, as if it had been held in place just long enough for the flash. But what caught Collins's attention was not Lena's expression. It was the photo behind it, slightly hidden. A vacation snapshot from 5 years earlier. Grant and Lena standing on a coastal bluff, arms around each other. But in the corner, barely visible, was a third person. A man, dark sunglasses, half turned away, cropped out of the frame but not completely. She took the photo in for evidence. Back at her office, she enhanced the image. The man's face remained mostly obscured, but one detail stood out. A small tattoo just beneath his ear. A minimalist design, triangular, clean lines. Collins had seen it before in a case file from years ago, connected to an underground group that specialized in identity changes, disappearances, and digital erasure. It was called the Third Exit. The group was a myth in law enforcement circles. Supposedly, they helped people vanish, completely. No paper trail, no digital footprint, no second chances. They didn't operate for money, they operated out of ideology. If you got out, you stayed out. Unless, of course, someone violated the terms. Had Lena used them once? It made sense. Marjorie Pike had vanished with almost surgical precision. Lena Morris had appeared months later, fully formed, with fake documents and a new life. The connection was too strong to ignore, and if Lena had used the third exit to escape her past, then the rules were clear. She had no right to return to it. But someone had found her. And if the third exit had a code, someone had broken it. Collins checked back into Grant's records. On the surface, his background looked clean. Too clean. No prior arrests, no serious infractions, just glowing references and local praise. But as she dug deeper, strange patterns began to surface. Small financial transactions to untraceable accounts, travel to obscure cities, gaps in employment filled with vague explanations, and more troubling, 2 previous girlfriends listed as unreachable. One had left the country, the other had simply stopped responding to everyone. Collins now believed Grant was more than just a charming man with a dark side. He had a method, a pattern. He found women who were trying to disappear, women with secrets, and he made himself their new home, their safety. Then slowly, he took control. Lena had been one of them, and somehow she had realized the truth. The name he wasn't supposed to know had shattered the illusion. But now she was gone, again. This time, without using the third exit. That meant she was on her own. No safety net, no backup plan. If Grant found her again, there would be no third chance, and Collins knew, with chilling certainty, that he was looking for her. Because when predators lose control of their prey, they don't give up. They hunt. The sun had barely risen when the anonymous envelope arrived at Detective Rhea Collins's desk. No return address, no markings, just her name typed neatly on the front. Her fingers hesitated before tearing it open. Inside was a single item, a flash drive. Nothing else. No note, no explanation, just cold silence sealed in plastic. She plugged it into a secure laptop, half expecting malware or a blank screen. Instead, a single video file appeared. She opened it. Grainy footage flickered to life. It showed a dimly lit room, possibly a motel. The angle was low, like the camera had been hidden. A woman paced nervously, back and forth, occasionally glancing at the door. Collins froze. It was Lena. Her hair was tied back, her face gaunt. She looked older, more exhausted than in any official photo, but she was alive. There was no audio, but the image said enough. Lena checked the blinds obsessively. She paused to write something in a notebook, then quickly tore the page out and burned it in the sink. After a few minutes, she stuffed a small bag with what looked like cash, a burner phone, and a map. Then the video cut out. Collins played it again, and again, until she noticed something. A shadow near the doorframe, just before the footage ended. Barely visible, watching, waiting. The footage had been recorded by someone else. Collins felt a slow dread bloom in her chest. If Lena had tried to vanish again, someone was already one step behind her. Someone close. Someone with access. She ran the flash drive through forensics, but it yielded nothing. Whoever sent it knew what they were due. The hardware was scrubbed clean, the metadata erased. The only clue came from the visual itself, a partial motel logo visible in the upper corner of the wall. After hours of cross-referencing, Collins found a match. The Willow Crest Lodge, isolated, forgotten, 2 hours outside town. She drove there that night. The lodge looked abandoned. Peeling paint, broken neon sign. Only a few cars in the lot, none registered to Lena or Grant. The manager, a reclusive man in his 60s, confirmed a woman matching Lena's description had stayed there under a fake name. She'd paid in cash, no ID, no questions asked. She was jumpy, he said. Didn't sleep much. Left around midnight 2 nights ago. Said she had to keep moving. Moving where? Back in her car, Collins reviewed everything again. Lena's first escape, her new identity, her second disappearance, the flash drive, the man with the triangle tattoo. The answer wasn't just about Lena anymore. It was about why Grant had said the name Marjorie in the first place. It wasn't a mistake, it was a message. A warning. Or worse, a claim. By saying it, he wasn't just revealing he knew who she was. He was reminding her that he owned her past. And if Grant had found her once, he could do it again. Unless Lena wanted him to. The thought chilled Collins. What if Lena hadn't vanished out of fear, but out of purpose? What if she was drawing Grant out, luring him away from the safety of his home, from the spotlight of police attention? If so, she was playing a dangerous game, one she had already lost once before, but maybe this time, she had learned how to win. Because the look in her eyes in that motel footage wasn't panic, it was preparation. She was done running. And someone was about to regret ever speaking her old name out loud. A storm rolled in the night. Grant Morris left town. He told no one where he was going. Not his business partner. Not the few remaining friends who still believed his version of the story. Not even his lawyer. But surveillance picked him up at a gas station 2 hours west of Bellevue, wearing sunglasses and a hooded jacket, driving a rental car under someone else's name. Detective Rhea Collins saw the timestamp on the footage and felt a sick certainty settle in her chest. He had found her. The flash drive had been a warning. But from whom? Lena? Someone else? Whoever sent it, their message was clear. This wasn't over. Collins feared she was running out of time. She knew now that Lena wasn't simply missing. She was hiding in plain sight, and Grant was closing in fast. Collins filed for a statewide alert, pushing for a bolo on Grant's rental car. She'd already linked him quietly to Marjorie Pike's disappearance, though without Lena's testimony or a body, there was little to act on officially. Still, she kept digging. She found a second disappearance connected to him. A woman named Isabel Ray. Vanished 7 years ago in a fettered city, with no trace and no one to file a report. She had used a false identity too. Her digital trail ended the day she met Grant. No police report was filed, but Collins unearthed a purchase he made under a now closed account, a diamond ring delivered to the same address where Isabel once lived. The pattern repeated. Grant didn't chase women. He followed ghosts. Women trying to disappear. Women running from something or someone. He found them, made them feel safe, and then trapped them under a new name and a quiet life, until one day, something went wrong. They said the wrong thing, asked the wrong question, and then they were gone. Lena had almost been one of them. Almost. But Lena had something the others didn't, memory. She remembered what happened 12 years ago. She remembered what she had seen, what she had survived. And now she was using that memory against him. Collins pulled a favor with a contact in the Department of Transportation and tracked Lena's last known movement using toll booth camera footage. She had driven north, then west, switching vehicles twice and staying under radar. The last footage caught her in a remote town called Falcon Hollow, a quiet, forested place where cell reception was nearly non-existent. Collins left that night. Falcon Hollow was the kind of place you only found if you were meant to. One grocery store, one inn, and endless stretches of woods. She stopped at the inn first. No one matching Lena's description had checked in, but the clerk paused when Collins showed her a photo. "She's been here," the woman said. "Didn't stay, just asked for a map of the back roads." A map. Just like in the motel video. Lena had a destination in mind. Somewhere off the grid. Somewhere she knew better than anyone. A place she had picked carefully. Not to hide, but to end something. Collins kept driving, deeper into the woods, passing old cabins and broken fences. She followed the route Lena had marked on the map. And finally, at the edge of a lake wrapped in mist, she saw it. A lone cabin, with smoke curling from the chimney. She stopped the car. Got out slowly. The silence was thick. She didn't knock. She waited, because she wasn't sure what she would find. Lena? Grant? Or something much, much worse. And whatever it was, it had been waiting too. Detective Rhea Collins stood still in the clearing, her boots sinking slightly into the wet earth. The wind whipped off the lake, carrying the sharp scent of pine and something fainter, woods. The cabin ahead looked almost peaceful, its slanted roof dusted with leaves, a single window glowing faintly from within. But every instinct in her body told her peace was the last thing waiting inside. She approached slowly, her hand near her sidearm. The only sounds were the distant rustling of trees and the soft crunch of gravel beneath her feet. No movement inside, no sound from the cabin at all. Collins scanned the area, spotting faint tire tracks that matched the rental car Grant had taken. They ended at the back of the cabin. He was here, or had been. She circled to the rear, her eyes catching something half buried in the soil. A broken phone. The same model as the burner Lena had packed in the motel video. It had been crushed deliberately. Nearby, fresh boot prints led toward the edge of the lake, and then vanished into the brush. Back at the front door, Collins pushed it open without knocking. The air inside was thick with heat and silence. The fireplace glowed faintly, logs crumbling into ash. A pot of water sat boiling dry on the stove. A chair had been overturned near the small table, and on the wooden floor, just barely visible in the flickering firelight, was a smear of blood. Not a lot, just enough to suggest someone had been injured. There was no sign of a struggle. No bodies, no weapons. Only a sense of something having ended. Collins moved further inside, her flashlight sweeping over walls lined with old photographs. Most were landscapes, lakes, forests, quiet towns. But a few were portraits, women's faces, smiling, peaceful, all different, yet somehow familiar. Collins studied them with growing unease. None of the photos included Grant, but she could tell these were his trophies, faces of women who had tried to vanish, faces he had followed, owned, discarded. She found Lena's face last. But this photo was different. It wasn't framed, it was torn, burned at one edge. And behind it, pinned into the wood, was a single note, handwritten. "I let him find me." Collins read the words twice. Her pulse began to pound. This hadn't been a mistake. Lena had wanted him to come here. She had led him, chosen the place. The route. The end. The fire cracked behind her. She turned, gun raised. Footsteps. Soft. Deliberate. From the shadows at the back of the cabin, a figure emerged. It was Lena, but she looked nothing like the woman in the photos or the videos. Her eyes were hollowed by exhaustion, her face streaked with dried blood. One of her hands was wrapped in torn fabric, but she was standing alive, alert, and very much in control. Before Collins could speak, Lena nodded toward the door. "He's gone," she said quietly. Collins didn't ask how. Not yet. Outside, behind the cabin, a shallow grave had been hastily dug. The soil was uneven. A shovel leaned nearby. The rental car sat parked in silence. Collins moved toward the grave, her breath tight in her chest. Inside it lay Grant Morris. His face was turned upward, his expression forever frozen in surprise. Lena had ended it. Not with panic, not with fear, with precision. Later, under interrogation lights, Lena told Collins what happened. How she had lured Grant back to the place where she first learned how to disappear. How she waited for him to reveal himself. How he underestimated her, again. And how, this time, she didn't run. She made sure he disappeared. Forever. And the final twist. Collins learned later that the third exit had no record of Lena ever breaking their rules. Because she never had. She was one of them. The best they'd ever trained.